Welcome to Black and Gold Digital Edition, a behind-the-scenes look at your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Hi, and welcome to our digital show. I'm Jay Puskar alongside Mike Fenner and Kent Urbanski. And gentlemen, the regular season is officially in the books for 2020. The Pittsburgh Steelers are division champions, even though they lost in Week 17 to the Cleveland Browns. And Kent, I'm going to start with you. Thoughts on how the backups played, especially Mason Rudolph? These guys didn't lay over and play dead. They played Cleveland right down to the wire and made Cleveland earn this playoff spot.
Yeah, well, look, when I look at this game, going into it, I think the coaches for the Steelers sat around and say, look, this game really doesn't mean anything to us on the books. Let's get some of these guys some experience and have a little dress rehearsal for what might be. And that's why you saw, Mason Rudolph come in and I thought he played pretty well. And they during the second half, they let him go down the field quite a bit. They took some chances. And I think, they just worked on some things against a team that needed to get the win. And so, they were going 100%. So I think they looked at this game as a kind of a dress rehearsal for some things, bringing Josh Dobbs in to, create a couple of different wrinkles and, in case Ben does go down, So I think they did pretty well in that game and they actually almost pulled it off.
And Mike, defensively, the fact that they sat a lot of their big stars as well, defensively, they kind of held Cleveland in check, especially the running game with Nick Chubb having that great start, and then all of a sudden they kind of started to hit the skids a little bit, but they've got to feel pretty good about the depth as they get guys back into the roster healthy and ready to go for the postseason.
You're exactly right. That's a great point because, yes, on its face, he's 108 yards rushing on 14 carries, but 47-yard touchdown right out of the gate. So truly, the Steelers defense pretty much shut down the run the rest of the game. They had 4 sacks. They did make some things uncomfortable for Baker Mayfield and company, but there are definitely some positives to take away from combining the Week 17 game with the second half dominant performance against the Colts in Week 16. There's a lot of things to be confident in, and I think that you're going to see a lot of dividends paid off by Cam Hayward getting rest and by TJ Watt not having to go out there as well.
Ken, how important was that? Because Pittsburgh never truly had a bye week this season with everything going on with COVID-19. And do you get the sense that this team could be refreshed and ready to go and just know that it's less than a handful of games that they've got to play in order to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, you look at, what Mike just said, especially the guys on defense, Cam Hayward and TJ Watt getting some rest. And, I think if those guys are in in that game, Week 17, Nick Chubb doesn't get that big 48-yard run. And getting those guys the necessary rest down at this time is probably, maybe that's a bonus that it happened, that they didn't get that break earlier and now they got it right before a game that really means something to them. And so I'm looking for this defense to really shut this Browns team down come Sunday night.
And guys, it's truly a miracle with the pandemic still ravaging the country and the globe that they even finished the regular season to the NFL, and now we're looking forward to the postseason. And right out of the gates on a Tuesday, we find out that Kevin Stefanski has tested positive for COVID-19 along with 4 other members of the staff, and the numbers just continue to grow. And just the way both teams are trying to handle this and get themselves ready for a playoff game. Mike, how much of an adversity role is this going to be for both sides?
Yeah, it's really tough. The timing on this for the Browns between that Jets game and moving forward from there, it has been really brutal, but this is going to be a whole new level of hurt with not having your head coach available for a playoff game. I know it's going to be it would have been his first game as a head coach in the playoffs, but a guy that has been there, has called plays in the postseason before, and a guy that knows how to really get this offense jump-started and be consistent. It's going to be really tough for Cleveland and Joel Bitonio on the offensive line as well. Others that are not going to be a part of this formula for the Browns. It's going to be difficult. But both teams, like you said, have dealt with this throughout the season, and you just hope that the guys on the back end of these rosters, the depth guys, can show up. And it's all about who can make that big play, who can make that wild card round play that defines the weekend, and you go, wow. remember that guy, remember that moment in that wild card weekend. You see and hear about so many of those guys, and you can remember back to some of those players. So I want to see who can step up for both of these teams in a moment like that.
You know, when I look at this, though, is that's with Stefanski being out, that's going to really hurt the Browns, because, you know, maybe the first 25 plays or so are scripted by Stefanski coming into this game, you know, and then, you know, with Alex Van Pelt being the offensive coordinator, he hasn't really called a game probably since he's been in Green Bay. So I'm looking maybe second, third quarter. You know, that's really gonna affect the Browns, and especially because Stefanski's good at making adjustments during games. I don't know how much that's really gonna hurt them come second, third quarter.
Kent, you and I were down in Pittsburgh on Tuesday when the news was breaking, and just the way head coach Mike Tomlin has handled everything from a PR standpoint, and even how he's handling this team going into this week. What are your thoughts, and just how upstanding that Tomlin has been through all of this, that he's not sugarcoating anything, and, you know, they're moving forward the best the way they can?
Yeah, plus they've been beaten in this round, you know, several times in the last decade. So he really understands the importance of winning this game, and if he doesn't, it'll probably go down as one of the worst losses in the history of, you know, his tenure as coach of the Steelers. So he knows what he needs to do to get this team ready. It's a home game, you know. Home field advantage is going to, you know, you can throw that out the window. I mean, at this point. But I think the veteran leadership on the Steelers, who have been to playoffs, versus the Browns being there for the first time, is really going to pay off for the Steelers.
And Mike Kent just hinted on it. I mean, the fact of home field advantage, I mean, we can say that with air quotes. You know, there's going to be no fans, and even if they move on to the next round and it tends to be a road game, you still don't have a lot of fans like you would see in years past. I mean, how do the Steelers even try to generate a lot of that built-in excitement and the adrenaline? It's easier said than done, but it is the playoffs. But, you know, there's nothing better than having 60 to 70,000 fans all in your favor. It
is highly disappointing not to have that crowd there, especially during the playoffs. But you'd have to hope that they are used to it by now at the regular season. And then you look at that second half against the Colts, where they really pulled themselves out of a hole there. I mean, they were down 24-7. It felt like everything was going into the trash, and they just completely pulled themselves up, and even without a crowd, were able to come back in that game. So you'd hope that they could do something similar to that. Another thing is, I don't think there's any fear of overlooking a team like this, considering it's a rival, considering it's a division foe. They played in Week 17, but also the last time that many of these Steelers players played a playoff game was a huge letdown where they overlooked Jacksonville back in 2017 in a shootout game at Heinz Field. There's a lot of guys that still really are chewing on that one, even from a few years ago, the last time they were in the postseason. So I don't see them overlooking this team, even without its head coach, you know, without an all-pro type left guard or anything of the sort. I think they're going to come in highly motivated to get back to the second round.
And remember, in that game against Jacksonville, it was the Leonard Fournette show. The Browns have a Nick Chubb type runner that can possibly do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Kent, bottom line, what is it going to take for Pittsburgh to advance to the divisional round?
Not beat themselves, basically. You know, they are getting healthy when it counts. I mean, they're not going to be at 100% with their normal starters, you know, missing Dupree, missing Bush. But I think if they get Spillane and some of those guys back, and bolster the depth at that linebacker position, I think they can really, you know, shut the Browns down if they can stop that run game. And I thought, like, the second half of the Week 17, you know, the backups really did a good job at shutting that run down. So with the defense coming back fully healthy, if they can shut that run down and make Baker Mayfield have to beat him with his arm, I don't think he can do it.
Mike, what about you?
The two things I'm looking for, number one, is the interior defensive line of the Steelers to take advantage of some of those missing pieces from the Browns. I think Cam Hayward's going to dominate, and I think that's going to be a huge key to the game. And then I think Deontay Johnson has a chance to step up and make a huge performance, because I think a lot of people are going to be sleeping on him, thinking more about Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster over the last couple weeks. I think some people may have forgotten about how impactful Deontay Johnson can be to the offense. I think he could have a big day.
All right, gentlemen, as always, thanks for the insight. So for Kent Urbanski, Mike Fenner, I'm Jay Puskar. Thanks for tuning in. We'll possibly see you in the divisional round. Until then, take care.
Thanks for watching. Join us again next week for Black and Gold Digital Edition.